Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a little bit of a while, but I'm back here with a classic Ironjawz video. Today we're doing a tier list of the current level of Age of Sigmar. Now, I'm not going to be doing the two new books, Soulblight, Gravelords, and OBR, so I'll be looking at the old books for now. But yeah, if you like it, please subscribe. We'll do some more videos at the moment. I do have a brief announcement, which is for those of you who used to be members of my Patreon or were interested in joining. What's happened to that Patreon now is I basically moved the coaching that I was doing over to Onwards Age of Sigmar. Many of you know what that is, but it's a fantastic coaching service where you get access to coaches who have been on AOS Worlds and otherwise have had extremely promising AOS careers. And really, if you want to get good at Age of Sigmar, there's no better place to go than Onwards Age of Sigmar. We have not only access to some of the greatest coaches, but we're also doing heaps of weekly content for you. So I'd recommend just instead of subscribing to something like Warhammer Plus, you could definitely check out Onwards Age of Sigmar. We're going to have heaps of content going out, and that's kind of what a lot of my time that I would be doing this content has gone to, is doing content over there. So if you're interested in seeing more content from me and also getting access to coaching services, then check out Onwards Age of Sigmar. The link will be in the description. Okay, so we are going to do a tier list today. Alright. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Okay. Well, I was doing them on the Patreon for a while, which some of you didn't know, that I was doing that every month. And the reason that I had it on the Patreon is because, well, the comments get a little bit heated. Don't they? And today, oh my gosh, when you see some of these, some people are going to be absolutely furious. But, you know, that's what YouTube's about at the end of the day, isn't it? It's about entertainment. So, you know, while I am aiming this as a serious video from the perspective that, you know, I'm actually trying to make a tier list that makes sense, please be aware that while tier lists are kind of a useful heuristic for understanding where an army is in the meta, that doesn't mean they have no use or are complete bin. There are, of course, certain battle plans and matchups and situations where an army is good where they might otherwise not be. Okay, so yes, now just quickly, my criteria are basically the following. Okay, the first thing is I don't believe in percentage win rate stats. I think they're just completely not valid. It doesn't mean that there's not valid in collecting them. It's just from a tier list perspective, it's not appropriate to look at just raw percentage stats across all instances of an army being played as necessarily indicative of where they are in the tier. Now, there might be a place for understanding large differences. So generally, if an army has something like a 40% win rate and you're comparing it to an army that has 60% win rate, I think even given the noise that's in the sample, it's more or less easy to say that the 40% army is probably not great and the 60% army is probably really good. Okay, that's kind of all we can say from those win rate stats. So I do have to kind of throw in my personal opinion here, because at the end of the day, although we like to believe otherwise, and Games Workshop also has decided that they like to believe otherwise, data's just not quite there in Age of Sigmar at the moment. So we really have to use our scrying eye, our knowledge, our experiences to try and come up with an understanding of where everything is. So, yes, let's get into it. So I'm looking, I'm kind of basing it off of my own experiences. I'm going to justify as I go, and I'm aiming this at a competitive Age of Sigmar level. Okay. Yes. Now, one thing that I want to really stress here is that I am partially thinking about this from a team's perspective, because Warhammer, if you just look at it from a singles perspective, the danger is if an army is really overrepresented in the meta, the tier list that I'm going to make is going to be entirely based around what armies address that army the best. So if there's a big boogie monster, right now I think probably something like KO is like a big boogie monster, right? You might look at it and go like, okay, here's the tier list of all the armies that I can use to beat KO. And I could make that tier list, but it would be completely have no value in a week if KO get nerfed. Or, you know, if you go to a tournament, you've constructed your army based around this tier list and you don't happen to play any KO for whatever reason, then this tier list would be complete crap. Okay, so what I'm basing it on instead is really just a power rankings of where an army is in the meta, based, I guess, on the sum of its average matchup percentage win rate. Not the stats percentage win rate, but what I think the percentage win rate would be when they were placing another army. Does that make sense? right? So I'm kind of like looking at them in the context of all the other armies in the meta. How do they match up? Where can I put them? Okay, and that's where I'm going to end up placing them. So, yes, that's the end of the introductions. Let's get into it. So, Flesh Eater Courts. I'm a big fan. Okay, I'm a big fan of Flesh Eater Courts, but I think it would be disingenuous to put them anywhere above the C or B tier, okay? This is a good army, and Games Workshop said they're absolutely surging, which I think is a bit of an overstatement, isn't it? I mean, they're performing well, considering how old the Battle Tome is, but at the end of the day with Flesh Eater Courts, there's not too many tricks going on, okay? You're either playing Morgaunt, where you need to roll 4-ups to keep your ghouls alive, or you're playing something like, Holomorn, where a block of 9 Crypt Horrors and a block of 9 Flayers, and you're just really hoping that none of them happen to get one shot, because if you do, then you kind of lose the game. But, I mean, it's a solid army. It's just not particularly tricksy at this point, and a lot of these shooting armies that can do 36 wounds in a turn manageably can really be kind of hard counters to fix. So for me, I'm happy to put these guys in the B tier, okay? Alright, Kruleboyz. For some, they may consider this army the worst army in the game. And there have been certain points where that's been true. But only certain points. I think overall this army is quite poorly understood, because the people that want to play it are Timmy Destruction players, and that is exactly who should not be playing this army. This army is ultimate control deck, boring, stand there, annoy shooting armies kind of army. Alright, it's going to be absolutely amazing as shooting armies. Against combat armies, it can be kind of okay, but if they have lots of durability or lots of bodies, it can be difficult to do enough damage. They've received a buff every battle scroll. I think now, in a team's tournament setting, they might be completely insane. But, considering, I'm not just talking about teams here. I'm happy to put these with Feck in the B tier, to be honest. Okay, Blades of Khorne. Alright, we have a shiny new battle tome. So I'm going to talk about the new battle tome here for Khorne. Okay? Yeah. So, it's an interesting battle tome, because in one respect, everything kind of feels the same, which Khorne has always kind of struggled with. But the big boost has really been to the demon side of things. The mortal side of things has, I think, stayed at more or less the same level in my mind. Yeah, sure, they've added a few saves across the place, but the points have gone up pretty much uniformly across the board. So, I think with Khorne, I think you can make an argument that maybe it's in B, but I would be hesitating to put it anything above A. It kind of feels like this kind of sort of level of army, like lower tier A to me. Like, it feels good, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel like that much of an upgrade over the previous Battle Tome. I wouldn't say it's disappointing. This kind of Battle Tome is probably where new Battle Tomes should actually land, and then maybe you add something a bit later. Maybe through either a battle scroll or just some points drops or something. I think it's sort of a middling kind of army. Okay, Kharadron Overlords. I'm happy to put these ones in S tier. Now, I don't think it's necessarily that much better than it already was. That's the thing. It's just what it's good against has slightly changed. So it used to be before you would have very accurate guns with lots of rerolls and, 2s to hit, 2s to wound, but not a lot of rend, okay? So you used to be able to, kind of quite manageably machine through, something like Nighthaunt, okay, that doesn't have a lot of wounds. So something that didn't have a lot of wounds, but wasn't high armor, was something that KO could really machine through. Now, the number of wounds that they do hasn't changed that much, but they've got a load of rend, okay? So basically, they're a bit more of a can opener army, and I think that makes them sort of more or less sit in the same spot, right? They're better at killing stuff with armor, but I think worse at killing stuff that had, a load of bodies on the board. Now, the one respect they've gotten a lot better is the durability, so the army is just much tankier than it used to be. And so that makes it so that even when you take a double turn, sometimes it can be actually difficult for your opponent to clear all the stuff on the board, especially after they've taken a shooting phase. So I think overall it got a little bit stronger, but not a huge amount different. I still would have put them top of A, bottom of S before the new Battle Tome, to be honest. So Well, actually, not in this GHB, but the previous GHB. This GHB, admittedly, they were kind of a bit weaker at the start. But anyway, the things they still can't kill are heroes hiding behind durable battle line, right? And also, they just have a generic weakness to null deploy armies of any respect, but particularly null deploy shooting because, well, the KO can't null deploy. So they can deploy in the corner, but they don't really have many screens, and they're kind of a little bit vulnerable to just getting jumped on, okay? Alright, Idoneth Deepkin. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in one respect, Idoneth Deepkin look good after I place them after KO, but the problem with playing IDK against KO is just that IDK just don't have enough rend. So even though it's great, you can start all your stuff off the board or be kind of essentially unshootable. It's just hard for me to see how you're ever going to kill anything with this army. So it's an army that just struggles with the power creep in the game. They've never really had access to good battle shock immunities, so you can take large blocks of things, but they're not really going to survive. If your opponent has any way of getting rid of battle shock or just shoots 2 units, or fights 2 units, I guess. So, yeah, they're not necessarily, like, as bin as some bin things have been in the past. Like, old Gitz is obviously worse than this, but, yeah, I think they're in a bit of a struggle point. Okay, Fyreslayers, happy to put these lads in B. I think slightly worse than Khorne, but they're definitely better than Feck and Kruleboyz in my mind. I think the recent rally nerfs have really hurt these. Before, I probably would have put them towards the top of A kind of area, but I think now they pretty much just fall down a tier because the Volkites, not so playable anymore, I think. I don't think you can take a big block of 30 because you can only bring 5 back when you rally, so yeah, looking a bit rough. Looking a bit rough for the Fyreslayers at this stage. The build you're looking for now is probably just a bunch of heroes with 2 units of 15 Hearthguard, but I don't think they can survive necessarily that well. So I think this is comfortably where they sit for the moment. Okay, so next we have Ironjawz, and these guys suck. I'm sorry, oh my god, I flame Ironjawz every time I do one of these tier lists, but I'm actually not going to flame them now. I'm actually going to flame Games Workshop because this army actually, I think, quite desperately needs some help at the moment. Now, the thing that's happened is that they have got a really good hero in the form of the Mega Boss with the Destroyer. But the biggest problem that's happened to Ironjawz now is for some reason they've just been, like, them and Kruleboyz have just been totally wrecked by the Arcane Tome nerf. So the way you used to take Arcane Tome in an army like Ironjawz before is that, well, okay, so the book has basically one good artifact, which is the Destroyer, and then, you know, if you want to look at another artifact, you basically look at an Arcane Tome, and all the command traits have been. So basically, what you used to do with Ironjawz is you would take a Mega Boss and Maw Crusher, you would give it Arcane Tome and Master of Magic, and you would take either the Teleport spell or the +1 to Wound Aura, okay? That's what you used to do. Now, unfortunately, you can't take a Spell Lore spell with the Maw Crusher now. I probably still would take Arcane Tome on the Maw Crusher because there's, like, nothing else better you can do once you've taken the Destroyer and the full Mega Boss. But, yeah, doesn't feel the greatest, does it? I think this army sucks, and it's a shame because I still think they look really cool, but I guess this is just what you get when you run a bunch of pigs for a long time, okay? This is, I guess, what happens. So, yep, Ironjawz down in the dumps. I hope the new Orc book comes soon because it's kind of desperately needed. Okay, that's that. Moving on to Lumineth. Wouldn't surprise you that I'm going to put them there. They lost like 70 points in a list. Does it matter? A little bit, because they would have been here before. So they're not in God tier anymore, but they're definitely still in S tier. They're an amazing army. They have some new bad matchups, one of which is Khorne, because obviously the AoE mortals don't work particularly well, and Khorne have plenty of ways to get ward saves at range. So Lumineth do have some new bad matchups, and I also think the meta shift is not particularly great for them if people can't start bringing like loads of null deploy 1-drop shooting armies, because Lumineth kind of suck against that. Yep, and against KO as well. You know, they barely have any screens. They're not going to kill much turn 1, so KO should pretty cleanly win that matchup, I would think. So, Lumineth looks decent to me. and still obviously amazing. And then putting them in S tier. I'm sounding like I'm putting them in B tier, but they're still S tier, okay, but just not what they were. All right. Gitz in a similar spot, and I would put them slightly below Lumineth. Are very strong, but again, I would have put them in God tier. But the nerfs do hurt quite a bit, I think. I'm going to make a video talking about it soon, about why I think that the nerfs they did were the worst literal nerfs that I could come up with. But the nerfs are very tacky, very poor approach to balancing. As I said, I'll do a video about that. But basically, the parts that make it bad is that they've essentially been able to make the 3 squig units, so the squig herd, squig hopper, and Bonegrot bounders, more or less on par with each other. Okay, so the squig herd are now kind of your best big block. Your Bonegrots are, I think, kind of your great MSU, and your middle size, and probably your hoppers are best. Okay, that's kind of the way they're looking at it now. The 15 Bonegrots you can take and still have good rally, but I always thought that was kind of crap. So I think that they balanced the squigs really well, but the points changes that they done to Scragrot and Gobblepalooza and the Snufflers really hurt the rest of the book. So yeah, I need to make a video about this book, because when I was reading the Battle Tome, I just thought that there's no way this is balanced at all, and the only way they're going to fix this is by fundamentally going against their own design philosophy, which they did, because they nerfed Rally. And in fact, they nerfed Rally for the whole game just so they could nerf 30 squig hoppers, which I thought was hilarious. Could have just nerfed 30 squig hoppers. Like, I don't think Fyreslayers was like completely breaking the world in the same way that 30 hoppers were. Like, Fyreslayers was a good army with 4-up Rally. But is it really necessarily to just suplex them into the ocean for the sake of balancing 30 hoppers? I don't think so. So, again, I'll make a video about that, but that's that. Okay, Nighthaunt are also quite bin. Now, I don't know if I'd put these in the Idoneth Deepkin tier. I think they're a step above that. I think we can put them in C tier. My personal opinion is probably more that they're deep, but I'm going to hedge my bets here. They did just get nerfed for whatever reason, because they were already bad. You know what? No, we're putting them in the D tier. Alright, they just got nerfed, and they're already bad, so no. Like, I can't realistically put them higher than this, because they're not better than Deepkin by much. Yeah, no, that's what they are. I can't see how this army just, like, survives ever against shooting armies. It's gonna have, like, 100 wounds now. Or might even have less than 100 wounds, and that's just not gonna cut it when none of it really comes back, so... nope. I'm not running this army ever in the future. Now, if you are a Nighthaunt player, there are still ways to play this army. I just think that unfortunately what's going to happen is you just find yourself getting to round 4 or 5 of a tournament and thinking like, alright, well, I'm going to lose this game if I don't just roll a bunch of 4-up saves here, because my army just can't survive. So that's what's going on there. Okay, Nurgle. You're still A, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're mad. They're better than Khorne. This army's great, but it's boring. It's really boring. We're all bored with Nurgle. I mean, it's just a good army, isn't it? They got good Galatian champions. You can summon more. They're good at battle plans. The battle tactics and ground strat are a little bit on the weaker side, but you can kind of build into it. You know, if you run lots of the demon flies, you can do the demon fly battle tactic. If you have a Lord of Afflictions general, you can do the one where you capture a terrain feature in your opponent's territory, which is like fairly manageable. So there are ways of building into it. I'm still a big fan of this army. Again, as I was just saying, it's just kind of boring, isn't it? Yeah. Alright, Ogor Mawtribes. No doubt A tier. Now, do they have many builds? No. Is it a particularly creative army? No. Is it a fun army? Kind of. But is it good? Yeah, it's absolutely good. This army is really good. Like, it doesn't seem like it's amazing on paper, but, you know, you're either running the Kragnos dad bods, so Kragnos tyrants and gluttons, or you're running 6 mammoths, okay? And either way, you're having a good time. Yeah, it's kind of oddly good into shooting, because either your mammoths have a 5-up ward or your gluttons have -1 to wound. So I'm a big fan. Yep, great in teams because they have a take what's theirs that's not called take what's theirs. Just a good army. Cheap to buy as well. Like, if you just want to, like, get into Warhammer, have a good time, like, you know it's going to be a good army, you know they're going to do what they say on the tin, But at the same time, you're going to get better as you play these guys, because there's actually a bit more play than it used to be with them, I think. I'd recommend picking up Ogor Mawtribes. Super easy army to get into, and I think rewarding, in a way that... They're rewarding in a way that the entry cost, and in terms of both money and skills, not too high, but you do actually improve over time as you play them. Like, there's somewhere to go with them, which is what I used to feel like there wasn't. But there definitely is a place to go with them now in terms of skills, so yeah, I definitely picked them up. Okay, so Big Waaagh, I'm also putting an A tier. I'm going to surprise people with this, but yeah, I'd put it about there. I think this army is really good. Now, how is it that we've ended up with Big Waaagh in A tier and Ironjawz in bin tier? Well, I actually suspect it's been like this for like a long time. Probably since, let's see, maybe February of last year, I would say. It was probably been about this distance, but probably Auric Warclans may have actually, or Big Waaagh may have actually been up into like S tier at that time, and Ironjawz may have been somewhere down here, right? Yeah, so why do I think they're so good? Fundamentally speaking, the arcane term nerf does hurt them quite a bit, okay? But what makes this army so strong is just the Galatian champions, okay? This army probably has the best Galatian champions in the game, because you have access to the Wargog and the Megaboss, okay? So, since you got those two, instantly those hero-specific battle plans, so... only the worthy or position of power, you just have a massive advantage on, especially since your heroes kind of all teleport. Yep, it's a very good army, and not enough people play it. I suspect because it's kind of got a little bit of a boring factor, like, it just doesn't have as many interesting rules going on, but at the end of the day, +1 to hit and wound, +1 to cast, and having access to big soup is just good. Alright, Seraphon, this army sucks. I'm gonna surprise people with this, but oh my gosh, you get nothing now. Yeah, this is an army that probably had one too many points nerfs, I would say. Like, I would expect no team at Worlds is gonna run this army, maybe a couple with Croak. But the problem is, now you basically just get to have like one of each thing. Like, okay, you go Croak, and then a Basti, and then an Engine of the Gods, and then some stuff and some endless spells, and that's kind of all you get now. It's crazy. The army's just gone up every patch since it's come out, and we've finally reached a breaking point because we've had all these new battle tomes come in. Now, Seraphon would have been worse a lot earlier if we didn't have the production line problems of last year. Okay, because the new battle tomes kind of dominate the front half of this table, as you can see. Like, basically, if you look up the top there, with just only a couple exceptions, generally, you could like basically sort this tier list from recency for the most part. Okay, there's some exceptions in there, but generally, if a battle tome's new, it's probably 70% its chance that it's stronger than a random other battle tome that's older, right? So, what's getting Seraphon is the fact that there have been new books with underpriced units and strong abilities, while they've just been nerfed every patch. Okay, so, yep. They probably deserve a little bit of time down in the dumps. Let's enjoy the next 2 months before new Seraphon comes out, and it's the most cracked, broken thing you've ever seen in your life. Alright, let's just enjoy the time for now. Because, oh my gosh, the last book was so broken for so long, but now it's finally not good. And I love it. Terrible battle tactics, basically no grand strat, no durability at all. Yeah. How far they've fallen. Okay, Soulblight Gravelords. So, and OBR. Okay, so, well, we're going to talk about the old books. Okay, please, this is the old books. I'm not talking about the new books. If anyone says, why are you putting new OBR in the bin? Okay, if it's new OBR, I'm telling you right now, it's S or God tier, and same for Soulblight Gravelords, okay? Both those books are completely cracked. But the armies haven't been worked out yet. It's going to be facts. They're not in for Worlds. Okay, I'm not going to talk about them. So, I'm just going to say, okay, obviously old OBR is complete bin. I actually don't think it is. To be fair, it's probably like C. And then old Soulblight Gravelords is great. I think it's A tier. Alright, above Ogres. I put it there. Okay. Bonesplitterz. This army's also quite bad. We're gonna put it here. Alright. Is it better than Nighthaunt? No. Is it better than IDK? Probably not. No. Alright, but it is better than Ironjawz. I'm gonna put it there. An army that's been nerfed because, well, this is a victim of Games Workshop win stats, okay? Because this army had, like, the lowest sample size I've ever seen in my life. And Games Workshop is just like, you know what, Destruction players? Fuck you, actually. You know what, Orkman? Fuck you, actually. Because, oh my god. The points nerfs for this army was so disproportionate to how good it was. Like, it was pretty good, but, oh my gosh. I've never seen an army suplex to the ocean faster than that. I reckon basically what happened is let's say old mate Daryl at Games Workshop was like, alright, I want you to release Bonesplitterz, but we don't want to make them in the factories, so can you just give them basically no rules and just so nobody buys them? And old mate Steve on the Battletome writing front was like, alright, yep, I'll do that. I'll give him no rules. And then Larry the intern said to Steve, oh, I don't know, mate. They haven't got much in there. Do you reckon we could just give it like a once per game 4-up ward? And then Steve said, yeah, all right. I mean, that's fine. Well, it wasn't fine, and the army probably was something like a middle of A tier for a little bit, and that was too much for Games Workshop because they didn't want to produce the kits anymore. Who knows? Who knows if this army will exist in a year, or 2 years, or 5 years? It might not. I don't think Games Workshop wants it to exist, so I think until the end of time, because they can't squat the faction because of, historical backlashes for that, the army will exist, but probably have basically no rules and be terrible, and yeah, that's kind of where it is now, because they nerfed the points to the point where you barely get anything now. If you look at the points of Savage Orcs for I can't even remember what they are, like 150 points or something. It's not good, man. It's really not good. So the Boreeboyz are kind of alright. Like Boreeboyz and Kragnos, it's kind of alright, but it's a pretty hacky army. Yeah, I put him down in the dumps in D tier. Alright. Slaanesh is one of the new battle tones that people are freaking out about, but I would not put it, in my opinion, anywhere past here. It's good. It's great. But I don't think it's on the level of Gitz, Lumineth, or Kharadrons. That's just kind of my estimation for the moment, though, because it's one of those armies that's just going to take ages to work out, because there's a lot of bin war scrolls, and generally that makes it hard to work out what's good. Not easier, as people would think. Khorne kind of has a similar problem, where there's a lot of war scrolls in the book which are just like, all right, what is this doing? And then you're just trying to find good units, and then you got to scroll past 10 war scrolls to get to a good one. It's like, okay, what's this? What are all these war bands doing in Khorne? Are some of them good? And then you read them, it's like, okay, some of these are actually maybe alright. Should I take them? How do I buy them? You go on the Games Workshop web store, they're all sold out. It's like, why are they in the book? And Slaanesh is kind of the same thing. You're looking through the demon stuff, it's like, this stuff is awful, but maybe it could get me depravity, surely it's alright. You look at Sinestro and Dexessi, just surely they wouldn't make a beautiful model that came out recently, have rules that are this bad. With Sinestro, they were like, okay, I know you guys were complaining about Sinestro being a one-cast Lawmaster, so, okay, here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to change Cog, so she can't have 2 casts, okay? Alright. And then, what else we're going to do is we're going to make her not a Lawmaster. So, you guys were complaining about her being a one-cast Lawmaster, but she's just a one-cast wizard now. That's exactly what you wanted, right? It's like, nope, this war scroll sucks. So, it's a weird book, and the sub-factions are so wonky. One of them has infinite command points, one of them has infinite rend, and then the other one is just there. Alright, so, weird book. I think in the same way as Gitz is not going to survive long with nerfs and stuff. It's just too, extreme in the way that it's written. I'm not a fan of it from a design perspective, but that's, I think, where it is here, because at the end of the day, it still gets completely murdered by shooting, so that's positive, I guess. Okay, Beasts of Chaos. They randomly got nerfed because I think what happened was someone at Games Workshop played against 9 Bulgors and was just like, nah, man, we got to nerf that. So there's something called a screen, which is a bit of modern thinking, because, oh man, they could just pull the screen 2d6, but what if we had 2 screens? And what if the screens were more than 9 wounds, so they don't, just die to Bulgors or whatever, I think, yeah, I think maybe I'd put them, here. It's a good army, don't get me wrong, but it's not deserving of a nerf. Like, it just wasn't. In fact, probably the thing I would look at is nerfing the Spawn, not because it's like the most disgusting army in the game. It is a good army, but like that's clearly not supposed to be what it is. So I probably nerf the Spawn. I don't know why the Bulgors got nerfed. It just seemed excessive. And yeah, Cities of Sigmar. I'm going to put them down here. Apologies to my friend Sam Morgan, but that's where they're going. Look, I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're particularly great either. They're probably like the 16th best army. Like, if I'm taking a 16th man event, I'm considering taking the... That's always been my meme lately. When someone asks me, like, oh, Stuart, what do you think of this army? And if I know that my army matters to them, I'm just like, you know, if I was in a 16-man team tournament, I'd consider taking it. If I say that, it means I think the army's probably not that great. Cities still has kind of a problem of the late game being really poor. So I think Cities of Sigmar is essentially Incarnate plus Endless Spell plus Sorceress, and then whatever the rest of the army is, okay? Because the Incarnate is going to survive long enough that it's going to smooth out your late game issues, and it's going to provide you much needed survivability in this army. So I think basically you're running like Incarnates and Stormcast units to kind of hide the fact that this battle tome is like incredibly old and needs looking at, which it will, because we know that they're getting a new battle tome. Okay, one we don't know if they're getting a new battle tome, and one that absolutely sucks is Doc. And I'm putting them in bin tier. No, I'm not. That's too inflammatory. I'll put them here, alright? I think they're bad, alright? But I think they're better than Bonesplitterz and Ironjawz, alright? They're probably better than these two, alright? We can put them here. Let's not be too troll. Alright, like, you know, guys, I don't like elves, alright? But I can't put these guys down with Ironjawz. I just can't. But I think Cities, OBR, and Seraphon are all better in my mind. And all the stuff above them just completely claps them. This is an army that is just a victim of power creep, okay? Because it's been nerfed and then kind of forgotten about, and then new stuff have come out. So one thing that Games Workshop just needs to be careful of in the future is if they have an army that's like pretty good but not the best army in the game, do not nerf them if new stuff is going to come out that's going to be good. Alright, just let them be kind of good for a while. So I would say Beasts of Chaos, which they just nerfed, which was an S tier, is in the same position, okay? This army can continue to fall down the hierarchy every time a new battle tome comes out, okay? Does that make sense? Because battle tomes generally slot in here, somewhere in this kind of area, right? The middle of A tier. So if we have a book that's the bottom of A tier, it just continues to slide down every time we get a new book. And that's kind of what happened to Doc, right? Every time there's been a new book, they've been slowly falling down, and they don't have some of the other factors that, for example, Kruleboyz have with the anti-shooting, Fyreslayers have with the durability, or Feck have with the damage and mobility. They don't have that same factor, I don't think. So that's why they've continued to slide down and have kind of very minimal longevity. And maybe one day they'll write a Doc battle tome that can last for more than a year, but for now, this is what happens every time, and it's very unfortunate. And now I think the only way to play the army is Morathi and the Bow Snakes again. So, lovely. Maybe with an Incarnate. Maybe it's Morathi, Bow Snakes, and Incarnate. Lovely. Alright. Sons of Behemat are obviously down here, but they are better than Ironjawz. This army has no battle tactics, but maybe it could win if your opponent's really bad. No, I don't know. They are bad, and I'm not necessarily against them being one of the worst armies in the game, because I hated playing against them when they were good. But yeah, that's where they're going to be down here. Okay, Slaves to Darkness. My mind, it's going to kind of shock some people, but they're actually here. In my mind, I would place all three of those armies above them, but I would place them above the C tier. I actually thought it was quite interesting that Games Workshop buffed them. I know they did it purely based on win rate stats, but I actually think they needed more buffs than that. Because, you know, again, what I was saying, the Beast of Chaos, right? Because this is a new battle tome, right? This came out in December/January. Like, this is a really new battle tome. And it's already not good. You know, in the context of the rest of the stuff that's coming out. Like, all of these armies completely murder Slaves to Darkness, okay? Maybe with the exception of... No. No, maybe KO's sort of not that amazing if you don't roll well. I don't know. No, I think they get all murdered by this. And probably this as well. Yeah, it's not looking positive for Slaves of Darkness. They need some help. They need some help desperately, okay? Because we've got to help out these battle tomes where, you know, they've come out recently. They're not too strong. The army's core identity kind of doesn't function that well. Like, I'm not really sure what the Slaves to Darkness army is supposed to be. But right now, basically, it's just sort of like Karen Guard. Yeah, the Karens are the best aspect of the army again, but they're just worse than they used to be. So the army's just gotten worse. Now, if it was old Knights of the Empty Throne, this probably be top of A tier, like really good army for sure. But no, it's not. All right, Sylvaneth, top of B tier. It's a good army. Is it amazing? No. It is good though. In teams, I think you're gonna see this a lot. In singles, I think it still has a place as well. But I still think it's a little bit dicey. At the end of the day, the roll matters a lot more than with other armies if you one drop. And also, just on every battle plan, it can't perform exactly to how you would like. So, I do not recommend playing Sylvaneth on Presence of Idols, for example. I think that's awful. And there are a bunch of other close battle plans like that, like Realmstone or something, that are also pretty bad. So, still kind of okay, because it's decent against Lumineth and some other kind of elite armies, but yeah, put it about there. Tzeentch, I would say, are now probably bottom of S. I would have put them top of S, but everything basically is just fallen down a little bit that's in here. So I'd put them there. There's not much I can say here about these. It's just horrors and heroes. When the book came out, remember this, I was like, when the book came out, I just thought, I thought Kyrix and Zangors and all that was just complete bin, and you just run horrors and heroes, and everyone was saying, everyone in my comments was saying, either agreeing with me and saying, yep, this is has the poorest internal balance of any recent battle tome I've ever seen in my life, or they were saying, nah, man, Zangors are going to cut it. They didn't cut it. Alright, you are just running horrors, okay? Maybe you run some Zangors and Kyrix to fill battle line, but nothing beyond that. This army is not well designed in the same way that Lumineth is, okay? Because Lumineth also has terrible internal balance. So, yeah. You know what you need to do, Games Workshop? I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to be really controversial. Okay, if a unit in a battle tome is good and too good, you nerf the unit. I'm blowing people's minds here. Oh man, I really just this part of their balance philosophy just proper riles me up, okay? Because it's the same with Gitz, right? If hoppers are too good, you nerf hoppers. You don't nerf Fyreslayers, okay? If horrors are too good, we don't nerf the heroes. We nerf horrors. Because if you nerf the heroes, people will bring more horrors, and they will be more offensive, okay? In Lumineth, if we want to nerf Sentinels, we don't need to nerf the heroes, okay? We can just nerf Sentinels. 10 points is not enough. Let's put 20 points on the Sentinels and nerf Helon and buff the rest of the battle tome. That's gonna fix it, okay? But it didn't happen. It didn't happen, did it? So, yeah, Tzeentch, you need to nerf the horrors and then buff the mortal aspects of the book. Again, I'm blowing people's minds with this. But if an army has one really good battle line unit and one really shit battle line unit, you buff the really shit battle line unit and nerf the good one. I'm blowing people's minds here, but that needs to happen with Tzeentch because, well, it's an interesting army in a competitive setting. You know, it's a good defending army in the sense that because of its grand strategy and battle tactics, it's always going to score points in a game. Because of its durability with the horrors, it's going to take a while for you to get it off the objectives for most armies. So, very strong army. Yeah, and that's why I'm going to put it in the S tier, but please just nerf horrors. This is just ridiculous. Yeah, Skaven. I think, yeah, we can put them probably somewhere here. Particular builds will be good against certain armies. I won't elaborate more on that, but basically, Skaven still have a lot of randomness, which stops them from being a top-tier competitive army, but they're still great, okay? And I would say Stormcast are kind of in a similar spot for me. They're somewhere down here, probably below Sylvaneth, okay? Yeah, and that's sort of what the meta looks like at the moment. I don't think there's anything god tier at the moment. Now, with the new Soulblight Gravelords and OBR, I'm honestly tempted to say that those two would be in god tier. So if we're talking about the new two books, you know, they might end up being at the top up here, okay? I know that seems like I'm overreacting, but that's some serious power creep in those two books. Anyway, what do you think about this tier list? Do you have any agreements? Do you think that the Games Workshop should give Fyreslayers some compensatory buffs? Let me know, alright? And as a reminder, check out Onwards AOS, Twitter, subscribe, like, give your mum a hug. See you later. Bye.